Casuals were grinding here, talking sports without the doubt. No need for rules, no golden binder. This is sports ball grinder. This is sports ball grinder. This is sports ball grinder.
All right, welcome into a Sports Ball Grinder special edition. We're going a little early this week because it's tourney season officially. The NCAA Division One men's basketball championship is upon us. Finally, we're here. Bracket season. It's when everybody in your office becomes a basketball expert. They start quoting things like Ken Palm and the net and start talking about quad two wins and all this other nonsense that means about as much as your usual spreadsheet meeting. It's a good time to be here and to talk about it with me. Good friend, not a voice that you shouldn't know if you've been listening to The Grinder for a long time, but one of the co-hosts of the incredible Film Strip podcast and an incredible writer at Den of Geek himself, Ron from Louisville, Kentucky, live here with us, but not with Rick Pitino's Italian restaurant, I understand.
No. I've actually never eaten at that restaurant, and I wasn't eating at that restaurant before the incident. I'm definitely not going to eat there now.
No doubt, no doubt. But you probably spent about as much time in New York as he has, I think. But it's always fun to talk tourney bracket stuff because I can tell you, like, I keep up with college basketball just kind of on the side. It's fun, and this year in particular was pretty interesting because you had the SEC doing things in basketball that they just don't do normally, and you had other teams that kind of seem to fall by the wayside. But I'm not one of these that sits down and all those stats and stuff I was quoting out. I don't know any of that stuff. I just kind of watch the games and look at the highlights and see who's going. But I always get every year I say the same thing. I'm like, I'm not doing the bracket contest. And every year I pull into one. I'll do two or three just for fun, right? And I think that's half the fun of it. I had a friend once that won one in an office literally by picking mascots she thought would win in the fight, and it wasn't a bad way to go.
Nice.
So, what's kind of your wackiest bracket contest story there, Ron?
I've actually won a bracket or two. But one year, one of my coworkers won the bracket just by picking based off of the uniform colors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's like that's somehow even like less like. I mean, who would win in a fight? A Blue Devil or I don't know, Mount St. Mary's Mountaineer or whatever they are. I don't even know what they are. Like, because some of those, it's like, well, this one's blue, but it's not the right shade of blue. So let's go with this other one. And like, ended up being one of the years that like Carolina won it. So it was like my favorite color won the NCAA tournament. Yay.
Yeah. Well, picking the blue teams isn't usually a bad deal. You got Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke. You do pretty good picking the blue teams a lot of the time, depending on what year it is, that is. I feel like, too, just as a side thing, like if wrestling promotions ran the NCAA tournament, we'd get all the Jesuit schools together and it'd be like an exorcism tournament, right? Like which priest can throw the most demons out at the same
The
time.
the Father Marin bracket.
Yes, yes, I love that. Maybe we should do that sometime. But no, I do think that's funny. What about you though, man? As far as college basketball goes, what you keep up with throughout the year?
Well, obviously, being from Kentucky, I follow the Kentucky Wildcats. Living in Louisville, being from Louisville, I have no choice but to be surrounded by the University of Louisville at all times. Um, so it's like living down the street from a pig rendering plant. The smell is all around you, and the smell is U of L. But yeah, and I've got friends who went to Western. I've got friends who've gone to Eastern. I've got some friends who were super invested in Bellarmine. Um,
Mm.
Back when, particularly last year when they should have made the NCAA tournament, but they couldn't because of the Fakakta rules
Yeah.
stating that you have to wait 5 years or whatever. Which I'm rolling my eyes so aggressively at that they're going to fall out of my head.
Yeah, I hear you. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with. It's such a big field, but there is something fun about this, and I will praise CBS and their selection show. They rolled this bracket out in about 30 minutes. The college football bracket, which was 12 teams, I think took 2 hours to finally get out this year. I didn't watch it because I knew it would take forever. This one I watched while I was ironing. Like it was so quick, and I love the efficiency of it. And like everybody else though, it was strange this year to watch that and not have Greg Gumbel's voice all over it, after 25 years and stuff. But yeah, they did a great tribute to him. And if you haven't seen that, it's all over social media, folks. Go check it out. Really nice touch. But the CBS is really efficient with this when they get this bracket thing out. They're like, we got to go. Probably because they don't have the money that ESPN and Disney do, that they just keep wasting on stupid things like failed Star Wars projects. So CBS has got like they're living on Tom Cruise and Taylor Sheridan money. So that only goes so far. So they got to get their stuff in and out within an hour. And I appreciate that, the efficiency of the bracket reveal.
Yeah, if you're not going to be the best, then you should be the first.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
that's certainly seems to be how CBS Sports at least is operating their facilities.
And most of the time, but I will say the guys at the Cover Three podcast that do college football kind of year round do a really good job of keeping up with the sport and kind of. So if you're a casual like we talk about on this show, that's a good one to follow because they're a lot of fun. Besides this show, of course. So let's get into the bracket here, Ron, and talk about some of our favorite first round games. We'll start in the South region where Auburn's the number one seed on that side, and opposite of the St. John's team that we mentioned, Rick Pitino earlier. He got them all the way to number two in his second year there. So, but what are some first round games over in the South region that you kind of dig and think might be kind of fun?
I think the Louisville Creighton game is going to be insane.
That's gonna be a fight. Yeah.
It's going to be a fight. The U of L guard Chucky, whose last name escapes me, um, was one of the national players of the year. He's great. As much as I hate to say something nice about someone who plays for U of L, he's really just he really has that swagger.
Mhm.
And Louisville is going to be basically playing a home game
Yeah, they're in
because
Lexington. Yeah.
they're in Lexington. It's literally like an hour away from campus. You can go from one campus to the other in like an hour. So it's going to be crazy, and I kind of feel bad for Creighton because they're getting like drawn into something that's going to be a surprise punch, I think.
Yeah, I think they're a good match, but I Louisville is so good, and when they're hot, man, they can stroke and score points, and it'd be a problem for a lot of folks. That's a heck of a draw, and you figure if Auburn gets past St. Francis or Alabama State there in that first round, which they should, but you never know, but they probably will. That's a heck of a reward for being the number one overall seed. Here's Louisville or Creighton, so good luck. So that'll be a fun.
Yeah,
In
here's Louisville or Creighton in a place that's going to be openly hostile to Auburn.
Yeah, exactly. You came in and dump truck the hometown team a few weeks ago. They hate you already. Yeah, as if Bruce Pearl didn't make enough enemies anyway in the world. I'll tell you what's fun. I think the UC San Diego Michigan game is fun because Michigan went ahead and won the Big Ten conference tournament to get in there. They got the five seed. UC San Diego, it's their first year to be eligible for the bracket, and they won 15 in a row to get here. They were 15-4 at one point, and now they're 30-4. I think that's fun. That I don't think they can upset Michigan, but I think that's a fun game to look at. Yale knocked Auburn out of the first round last year. They get Texas A&M over in Denver as part of the South regional when it all works out, and that is going to be I'll tell you right now, I would pick Yale over Texas A&M. A&M is you get beyond the two or three like biggest SEC teams, and then there's a lot of chaff there that can be beaten. And Yale's really good. They got a guy that can shoot threes like Larry Bird's grandson or something. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, is that the guy that they've been calling Larry Bird's grandson, even though he's not?
Yeah, that's where I got that from. Yeah, it's like the
This
winningest
is a
coach in Ivy League history too. By the way, now is there, so it's pretty
which
wild.
which is crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a beatable A&M team. Like this is the best basketball year the SEC has probably had in my lifetime.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But
14
man,
teams in the
it's
tournament. I mean, it's unreal.
but by this point they're all so beaten up,
Mhm.
having played each other in so many ranked games and so many big games. It's either going to battle test you or it's going to break you. And I'm worried
Mhm.
that Texas A&M might be on the broken end, just like another team that I hate to think might be a little too broken to go far in the tournament. But you know, we'll
Yeah.
talk about them when we get there.
Yeah. So rounding out that side of things, though, I have to give props to the Lipscomb Bisons who knocked out my alma mater UNA in the ASUN championship. They get Marquette. No, they don't. They actually play Iowa State, and honestly, that's a game they can get because Iowa State was great at one point, but injuries have derailed their season. They've lost a lot of games down the stretch here, so wouldn't be surprised. Somehow North Carolina, well, not somehow. Bubba Cunningham's on the chair of the committee. They get the play-in game with San Diego State, so North Carolina and Ole Miss get to play. So Ole Miss's reward for completely overachieving this year is you get to play UNC in the first round. Congratulations. It's not great for Chris Beard, but the team in all of this though, I mean, Michigan State is two, and they get to play Bryant. This is a good basketball team, but they're going to overmatch them in the Cleveland bracket, part of this bracket. Michigan State, to me, I read this wild thing that like only like 16% of two seeds ever make it to the Final Four in the championship game. Michigan State's the kind of team that could this year. They are really good. Tom Izzo has got that team completely turned around. Early in the season, they looked rough, and man, they totally turned it around and are playing incredible basketball right now.
Yeah, having watched many years of Calipari basketball, I know what it's like to watch a team start hot and then the wheels fall off. This is one of the few times I've seen a team start with no wheels, and then the coaches put the wheels on as the season is gone.
Yeah, right.
Like one of Calipari's go-to lines was, "We're playing for March, not November," and then March never happened. But like
Yeah.
with Izzo, this has been a great this has been a great coaching job by him. Like
Hmm.
if he's got less runway ahead of him than he's got behind him at this point in his career. But man, he even if they don't make it out of the first round, which they will, he he deserves to give himself a pat on the back because that was a fabulous save of a season.
Oh, it totally was. And look, they were right in it. Got upset by Wisconsin in the conference championship tournament, but at that point, that wasn't going to change their seeding at all, and it didn't. They were going to be a two, no matter what. The draw a tough two. Presumably, if you figure chalk holes, they'll take on Auburn in the Final Four. But we'll get into that later. But I mean, still, they've got a great path. Honestly, like they're going to match up well against Bryant. Obviously, Marquette, New Mexico. I think they're good against those. Though I think Marquette's a good team, and then they're going to get what Lipscomb, Iowa State, or Ole Miss, North Carolina. I mean, they got a pretty good walk. So if Michigan State can stay healthy, they should be good. Let's move over to the West Regional. And before we go over to the others, we're not doing these in necessary order. Florida draws the number one seed out of there. That was the team that won the SEC conference tournament, finished second or third in the overall rankings this year. Again, part of that juggernaut that the SEC was, particularly at the top this year. And they draw Norfolk State there at the beginning, but the second game there is interesting because the 8-9 is UConn and Oklahoma. And I don't know if you could get more ornery than Hurley and Oklahoma fans at each other
Oh yeah.
playing in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh man. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be a fun game of basketball to watch. People always used to talk about the Big East basketball bully ball. Like Hurley is trying to single-handedly bring that back. Not that UConn's in the Big East anymore, because I don't think they are. I honestly I couldn't tell you who's in the Big East anymore, but
Yeah. Who knows, right? Like these conferences are impossible to figure out. They are in the Big East, oddly enough. But they finished third this year because St. John's won that this year. UConn plays, I think, football in the ACC now. I don't know. That's impossible to keep up with too. But Hurley's always a surly kind of dude as it is, and so Oklahoma is a team that kind of fell into the tournament. They're one of those SEC like, well, we got to put them in because they played so many ranked teams. That's just a criteria. So we got to stick them somewhere. But I don't know that they're going to get very far. So you could get Florida, UConn, Golden versus Hurley in the second round there in the round of 32 would be a lot of fun at the end of the week. So I'm personally rooting for that. You got Penny Hardaway, who's down a guard but still won the American Championship. They got to take on a hot Colorado State team. That one might be one to watch for your old 5-12 upset right there. In the top end, Maryland's one of the highest scoring teams in the country this year. They play five out and shoot threes like all day. They get Grand Canyon, so they'll shoot it from the Grand Canyon. That's going to be a great second round matchup for them either way with Colorado State, Memphis. That could be a lot of fireworks up in that top part there. You got the Raleigh and Seattle parts of the West Regional going on there. Down in the other side, you got Missouri gets in. They take on Drake. That's an in-state team. Watch out for Drake. Watch for the Bulldogs. They're 30-3. They're not bad. Missouri can be beaten. Texas Tech playing great basketball. The UNC Wilmington Seahawks, got to give them a big shout out here in my current state. They're a lot of fun, but Texas Tech's going to be a mess for them. But you get Kansas, Arkansas, Bill Self, and John Calipari.
Oof.
Wow,
Wow.
that's going to be a lot of fun.
Two people whose coaching uh, mindsets could not be more opposite of one another.
No, right? Not at all. I mean,
And the guy that everybody wanted to take over at Kentucky before Calipari got the job.
right, right. So
Yeah.
there's lots of stories there, and for a first round matchup, it's good TV. Like
I'm
again, maybe promoters are putting this together.
so I'm telling you, if their coach of Arkansas wasn't John Calipari, they wouldn't be in the tournament.
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, but and look, I'm gonna give him some credit too. That team was hot garbage for about half the year, and he pulled them out of the fire. So
Yeah, they were hot garbage, and it was mostly the people he'd accumulated last season at Kentucky that were hot garbage.
yeah,
So he
yeah.
should
When he
have
switched to the
expected
other
it.
guys, yeah, when he switched to the other guys, oddly enough, it started working better. But then you got St. John's, like we said, the number two seed down there, 30-4 in his second year. Rick Pitino, all he does in his second year is get a team high up in the tournament. Everywhere he's been taking on Omaha, they should be able to make a run. You could potentially get Rick Pitino versus either John Calipari or Bill Self in that second round.
Now that's a fun second round matchup. Either way, you scratch it. That
Hmm.
St. John's team is tough. Like
They are.
you
Oh,
want to talk about some bully ball, man.
well, that's
That's
that
a
old Big East ball you're talking about. It's
that is
exactly it. Yeah.
yeah. And Patino was around for it in the '80s. Like
Hmm.
he's still beloved in Providence from his
Hmm.
time there coaching the Friars. Like he speaking of people who should have a pretty sizable home team advantage, it's going to be Rick. I would
Oh yeah.
I would be surprised if they didn't boo Omaha out of the building before the tip even hits.
Poor Omaha. So, I mean, congrats. You made the tourney, but boy, they got a tough draw. But good on them for making it in. But yeah, that's going to be rough. You think people from Kansas and Arkansas are aware where Providence is? Like, most of the fans can
Probably
find
not.
it. Yeah.
No.
That's that boy. I hope you flood the arena, people. That'll be a lot of fun. Let's flip over to the Midwest regional in Indianapolis, where the ones that'll go feed to that before we go up to the last one here in Wichita, Houston. You got another number one overall. They're 30-4. That's an awesome basketball team. Oh my goodness, have you seen them play? They can do all of it. They can play defense. They can shoot the lights out. They draw in SIUE for their first time in the tournament, so good on them. But their second round matchup could be either Gonzaga or Georgia, and Georgia's a basketball team that they're a nine because they played so many good teams that got beat by them. Like they're not that good. I think Gonzaga's pretty good. They should be able to walk off of that. The 5-12 in that side of things, in the other side of Providence, there is fun to me, Rob, because Clemson and McNeese State. Will Wade coaching McNeese State, who got run out of LSU for stuff that nowadays would probably get him a raise, paying players. So I think they've got a good chance at knocking off the Tigers.
Yeah, that's it's definitely interesting to see how the basketball uh landscape has changed now that the things everyone was doing under the table can now be done over the table.
Yeah. There was an article in the New York Times about the big booster for St. John's that basically helped build that program.
Yeah, somewhere Jerry Tarkanian is like shaking his fist in
Yes.
anger because it's like I was trying to do this 30 years ago
I
and you
was
tried to
doing this
ruin
in
me.
Vegas.
Yeah, imagine what he could have done in this era,
Oh
like
man.
with those
Yeah.
80s Vegas boosters. Like
Oh,
it
dude.
would have been
Yeah.
like UNLV and SMU in football, and it would have just been a desolate moonscape of nobody else.
Exactly. Everybody would be going west the whole time. You got Purdue High Point in there, High Point, another North Carolina team making it in for the first time. Good on them. That's going to be fun. It's a tough draw for Purdue, but it should be some good games there. You got Illinois, one of the highest scoring teams again in the country. They lost a lot of games because they had to go through like 10 different lineup changes throughout the year. So if they're healthy, they should do okay. They get Texas Xavier, that's a play-in game to get to them at the 11 seed there. Illinois should be able to do good. It's that next one, though, that I'm particularly interested in. One for your inside and one because I used to work at the other place. Kentucky is a 3 seed at 22-11 this year, but they draw the Troy Trojans back in the tournament for the first time since 2017 after winning the Sun Belt and a pretty good 23-10 team.
Yeah, this Troy is a legit contest for Kentucky, especially with how banged up the Wildcats have been. Like the fact that this team went 22-11 and made it into the NCAA tournament is not a surprise. The surprise to me is the teams that were beaten along the way. Like you see it all the time when people play down to the level of their opponent or play up to the level of their opponent. Kentucky is one of those teams that plays up to the level of their competition. Like 9 times out of 10, if you they're going to get they're going to take a punch in the mouth in the first half, and then the second half they're going to start punching back because that's how they've been all season. Now we've got a lot of players who are injured, not necessarily key players like in terms of stats, but like key glue guys, intelligent players that were supposed to come off the bench, that were supposed to be like steady fifth year senior hands that are not going to be available for the game. And there's some other guys who are going to probably be walking wounded coming into the game. But man, to take a team that started with literally nobody on the bench when Mark Pope got hired and to say, okay, here's the guys I'm going to bring in, trust me. And to have it work out as well as it has been crazy to watch. It's like it's the opposite of Calipari, where Calipari would bring in, 5-star freshmen every year. Mark Pope's like, I'm going to bring in fifth year seniors who know what they're doing. And then we're going to run the things my way. And I'm actually going to coach them, which is insane to think about having watched years of Calipari roll the ball out there what's a pick play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Calipari doesn't run plays. Yeah, that's not what he does. He has players. Just his philosophy is always dudes. I got dudes. Go deal with my dudes. Versus coaches. And Pope's a great coach. The thing about Kentucky this year is their defense is horrid. It's been bad all year. But when they're hot shooting, good luck. That's their thing. They're not unlike Alabama that we're talking about a little bit. That they can play a little defense, but they're really just a shooting team. Troy, really good defensive team, really good inside. Be interested to see how they match up with Kentucky. That's going to be a fun one, at least personally for me. UCLA draws Utah State in the other side of the Lexington bracket there. Actually, I like Utah State in that one, man. They're a pretty good basketball team. UCLA kind of limped into this tournament, getting the 7 seed there. But the fun one there is Tennessee at the 2 seed, playing Wofford at 15. Tennessee is the definition of if we could just play basketball the way they did in the 1950s when there wasn't a shot clock, we would win every game 19-16. Like they play keep away and defense and Zakai Ziegler, their guard, that kind of do everything guy is a great point maker, can get a lot of things going off the dribble, but he's so good defensively. They're so good underneath. They're going to be a problem for people if they can keep their defense ratcheted up. They got suckered into playing a couple of runaway games in the tournament, in the SEC tournament, especially against Florida there in that championship game. They just couldn't finish them out because they don't do that stuff. But this is a team that can really beat and bang with just about anybody.
Yeah, this is definitely a team that I wish was not in the Kentucky bracket because if Kentucky makes it that far, I'm not. I don't want to see that game again because that's the exact kind of team that gives us like nothing but trouble. And physical, hard nosed defenses against our team that doesn't play defense and doesn't particularly like to get pushed around. Of course, who does? As we've seen by Tennessee's play all year, they love to push people around, and everyone else like hates it for obvious
Yes.
reasons.
Yeah. And yeah, for a lot of reasons. But Tennessee's so good rebounding the ball too. That's what makes them so tough because they just get second chances and they just eat the ball away on you. That's going to be a fun region though. But again, I'm circling it right now. I think Houston's a really good team. That's a strong team. They're going to be tough to knock out along the way. We go finally to the East Regional, to the teams that'll feed in the East Regional. Duke, the number 2 overall seed, but really the number 1 in that bracket. There, they'll take on either American or Mount St. Mary's as the 16 you'll play in. Duke, Cooper Flag, we don't know. Is he going to play? Is he going to not? But he's not the only thing on that team. And I think people have started to realize that now. They are loaded with a lot of really good players, some of which have been there for a few years. They've built them up, some of which have transferred in. They've got some good guys. That's a good, deep team, poised to make a run in the tournament. They'll get the winner of Mississippi State Baylor. Mississippi State's one of those shoot the lights out teams. So when they're hot, you're not going to get near them. But if they're not hot, be careful. I don't think Baylor's that great at a 9, but Baylor's obviously, even though they're 19 and 14, they knocked off some pretty good teams this year to be able to get to that 9 seed. Otherwise, they'd be a lot lower. in there. But man, Duke looks like they're really tough.
All right, so I told you I had a controversial opinion before we
Yes,
got on the recording, and decided to save it for the recording, and I'm going to throw it out now. So Mount St. Mary's won the what is there's MAAC, the MAC, MAAC. I don't know how you say it,
the
but they
Mac.
won the MAC. Well, they
Yeah.
won. They won their tournament. They
Mhm.
should not be playing a play-in game. If you are an automatic qualifier because you won your conference, you should not be doing a play-in game. Save the play-in games for, teams that didn't earn their spot in, that are trying going to have to play their should have played their way in when they had a chance.
I agree 100%. Not a hot take at all. I don't understand how you can win a conference and you're playing a game. It's like you're not being rewarded for what you worked for all year.
If you win a conference, I don't care if it's the MAC or the Fun Belt or whatever your conference is. If you win your conference, you deserve to be playing in the field of 64. Save those last four in for some of those 7, 8, some of those teams with like 11 or 12 losses who may or may not be good enough to play, like Baylor. Baylor should be playing a
Hmm.
play-in game.
Yeah. You can actually
Not,
swap them out. Yeah.
yeah, not Mount St. Mary's. I
Hmm.
don't remember. I'm assuming American also won their conference tournament, because otherwise, why would they be here? They
Hmm.
didn't. They
Yeah.
should also be playing. I understand that they're both like 15 or 16 seeds, right? I get
Hmm.
that.
Sure.
But they won. They deserve to be in the actual first round, not playing in some kind of play-in game. And I get there's probably some benefit to playing in the first four. You get a little extra attention. Vegas probably loves the gambling lines or whatever. But like that's where you stick your blue blood mid major, your blue blood big major, like you know, fifth best team in the ACC versus the seventh best team in the SEC.
Hmm.
That's where those teams should go.
Yeah. You can
That's,
have some really fun first round matchups doing that, particularly this year. But
yeah.
yeah.
Uh, and to have to win a game to be sacrificed upon the altar of the Blue Devils is
Yeah.
just kind of just depressing.
It is depressing because it is a sacrifice. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't think it doesn't matter because it's. I feel like I'm going to be the Rock for a minute. It doesn't matter Mountain St. Mary's is because they're going to get waxed off the floor. It's basically a home game for Duke anyway. They're playing in Raleigh for goodness sakes. So they're playing there right across from home. They'll get the winner of Mississippi State Baylor, as we talked about. Oregon gets Liberty as the 5-12. That's another one. The guys on CBS were really hot about the Liberty Flame to see if they could knock off the Ducks. The Ducks in their first year in the Big Ten. I kind of like Oregon though. I think they're a pretty good basketball team. They could even make it to the Sweet 16. Arizona Akron. Fun 4-13 game. Arizona getting used to their new conference and stuff, but still reloaded, did really well out there. That's a fun, top part of that in feeding into the East Regional there. But I got no reason to think Duke doesn't make it all the way through that as we get on down. Go to the other side of the bracket. Alabama's the 2 seed. They take on Robert Morris at the 15. They will take on the winner of Vanderbilt or St. Mary's. So you might get an SEC rematch in the 32 anyway. There's too many of them. It was going to happen at some point. Alabama, though, health is going to be the thing. With Grant Nelson, they're looking at his knee. If he's not ready to go, it's going to be on a limited bunch of dudes, particularly Mark Sears, to really have to carry the load. Alabama, when they're healthy and they're hot shooting, they're almost unstoppable. Defensively, they got some holes, and that's the problem. And they're a little too up and down. And again, the health is kind of a problem. But man, got to give it up to the coach there for getting them back into a high seed again because they limped into last tournament as well and lost like five down the stretch, and then they went to the final four. So,
That's
they're
pretty
getting something
much
done.
that's pretty much the story of the SEC this year.
Yeah,
Like outside of the top three teams, you're not going to get a lot of defense, but you're going to get a lot of streaky offenses,
yeah.
and it
I
can
mean,
make
yeah,
for some fun basketball, or it can make for some terrible
yeah,
basketball.
yeah. Nate Oates will tell you that too. Yeah. So, but they can be fun. They could be a fun team. And the upside of that bracket, you've got BYU taking on Virginia Commonwealth, VCU. That ought to be a fun game. That's a fun 6-11 game. And then Wisconsin taking on Montana, Wisconsin, the runner-ups in the Big Ten tournament there. They play really good defensive basketball. The Grizz getting in there, that's kind of fun. But honestly, man, you could get if you get BYU and Wisconsin in the round of 32, that's going to be a defensive game against Vandy and Alabama, who are just going to try to shoot the lights out, probably, on the other side. Or St. Mary's from California, which is another offensive team. They score a lot of points. So if they beat Vandy, that's not going to be a shock. You could get like points versus defense, going out of going out of Cleveland and Denver, heading toward Newark.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure whoever comes out of that the Cleveland side of the bracket is going to be an offensive minded basketball team.
Hmm.
'Cause it's going to be because we're just going to discount Robert Morris, but Alabama, Vanderbilt, St. Mary's, all teams that are designed to live or die based off of whether or not their shots fall.
Hmm.
And when those shots fall, they can beat any team in the country, which
It's
is
just,
the which is like the dumbest like ESPN talking heads speech to make. But I've watched Vanderbilt play, I've watched
mhm.
Alabama play. I haven't watched St. Mary's play much, but I've seen enough highlights to see them like bombing the basketball. Like
Mhm.
it's one of those things where if the defense stops you 5 times, they're gonna keep stopping you. Otherwise, that 6 times is gonna be a 3-pointer, and
Yep.
then you got to go on the other side and try to match it. It's one of those ones you can't miss shots against them.
Mm-mm. Yeah, because they will turn it around on you very quickly. So we've gone through all the sides, the round of 64 there, Ron, and we pointed out some things. So what I want to know now is let's break it all down. Which number one do you think is most likely to go out before we get to the Final Four? If you had to pick one out of there before we get into our Final Four.
Having to play Louisville is if assuming Louisville gets past Creighton, Auburn having to play Louisville or Creighton in that side of the bracket is going to be a tough ask. That's going to be if that's a 1-8 or a 1-9, that's going to be a really tough. That's going to be a true road game for Auburn because I've already seen enough Kentucky fans are like, we're just going to show up and boo the doors off of everyone and go Creighton. So don't put it past Big Blue Nation to be that petty because we are.
I think you're right. I think of the four ones, Auburn is the one that's in the most danger of being knocked out early. Also because of the four ones, Auburn has the worst efficiency in rebounding. They're actually really bad at it. They're a good defensive team, and obviously they can score in a lot of ways. And when they're on, man, look, they were number one for weeks for a reason. I mean, they plowed through people for a while. But down the stretch here, injuries have started to mount up. That rebounding issue has come up. They've played better teams. I just worry about the draw and if it's going to work out. I'll give you another one too, though. As much as I've lauded them a little bit ago, Houston's really good. Won't be surprised if they get beat somewhere along the way too. I think that they can play up and down basketball, and I don't know that they've been pushed as much as a team like Duke that played a really good out of conference schedule, or a team like Auburn or Florida, Tennessee even as a two, Bama as a two, has played this year. So those are my ones. But yeah, I think we agree on that as well. Or any dark horse teams you think like, hey, nobody's talking about this team, but this could be a team that makes the run all the way. I played my hand early. I'll tell you what, I think it's St. John's. If they get hot and they're right in the right spot, they got a tough draw in the bracket, but they could make it all the way through, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen.
Yeah, as much as I don't want to agree with you, St. John's is a team that I've been paying extra special attention to all year just based off of who the coach is. And man, they are a tough out. They're going to be a tough out no matter where they're playing. But to get the nice cozy start at Providence is going to really help them. And they're not going to be a team that's going to play scared against anybody because Patino, he can literally say he's beaten every team in this bracket dozens of times, and here's how you do it. And I think that really starts to matter in this time of year. And I feel like those dudes have really bought in to the Patino defense mindset.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're going to be fun to watch for sure. Well, Ron, it's time to unveil our final four. Is sure to be completely 1,000% wrong, because I know mine went up in flames really quick last year. I'll give mine first, and then I want to hear yours. My final four right now, it's a little chalky, but hear me out. I've got Michigan State taking on Florida on one side, and Duke taking on Houston on the other side. That's kind of how I feel like it's going to play out. We'll get some wild upsets and things like that in the first round, maybe the second, but I think as they start to narrow down, those are going to be our final four teams.
Yeah, I really like the Michigan State pick. I'm there with you for Michigan State. and I'm there with you for Duke as much as it makes me want to throw open my mouth to say that. Um, I feel like Tennessee is going to be probably the other one of the other members to make it to the Final Four because I feel like they're just playing real tough ball,
Mhm.
and really I hate to say that like I hate to discount Florida because Florida has been playing out of their mind, but
Yeah.
I feel like as much as I hate to say it again, St. John's is going to be a team that matches up really well against Florida. And I feel like that's going to be like who gets punched in the mouth hardest first is who whichever team blinks first out of those two. And I feel like it's going to be Florida because I feel like St. John's has got a lot to prove, and I feel like that they're just carrying the torch of like '80s Georgetown. The ghost of John Thompson is going to be like cheering them on.
I like it, man. I like it. You got Michigan State and St. John's, and then Duke and Tennessee in the Final Four. I've got Michigan State, Florida, Duke, and Houston. I we'll see which one of us was more wrong than the other when we get to that point. But gonna be a lot of fun for sure. I'll tell you. Um, I do think it's interesting that we both have given reasons why we think the number one overall seed won't make it through. And the biggest one for me is Auburn just got a really lousy draw. I mean, they got a really hard draw out of all of it. They got rewarded for nothing, basically. And so, yeah, it does. But that's college basketball within the era of NIL and all that. Talent spreads, man. And when you got great coaches all over the country now and in places they can make a little impact, get a run, yeah, it's what happens. So it's gonna be a lot of fun, though. I mean, I think there's like studies out there about how much productivity drops on Thursday and Friday when the tournament starts off. So I remember distinctly when I was working at a different place, me and a few of my colleagues were really into this that year. I think it was one of the years the school we were working at was going into the tournament. We're like, hey, let's all have a meeting on Thursday afternoon. And we just went to like the local like Patty O'Brien's or something like that. We just sat around with appetizers and we had an agenda, but we may have talked about working for about 12 minutes. But because we're sitting there watching basketball all afternoon. But
That's what the
yeah,
tip off shows for, Jay.
I mean, yeah, right. That's yeah. So you do that while they're talking over there and go back to the agenda during halftime or whatever. But when the potato skins are getting cold, as it were. But no, I think it's a lot of fun, man. It's sort of like national holiday time, around here because you're kind of in the end of Q1 anyway at this point, and we're all just having a lot of fun with this. But it should be a lot of fun to keep it with and talk about it as we go forward. So when we narrow it all down, we get back down when we finally get to the Final Four, Ron. We'll have to have you back on, and we'll talk about how right or wrong we were at that point and what we think will come of it. But from your Final Four, if you had to pick one today, like who is your national champion?
If I'm picking one, I'm going Michigan State.
Good pick.
He been there, done that.
Yeah.
Time to do it again. They've just been playing too well. They've got a coach that we know won't crack under pressure. He's literally, he's literally been there and done that. I feel like they are one of the healthier teams left
Mm.
out of my Final Four, and the one least dependent on like one or two, twisted ankles or. I feel like they're just Tom Izzo getting to like the Final Four just feels like an inevitability pretty much at any time.
That's a good pick, man. It's a good pick. If I'm going to pick one out of the ones that I laid out, it's going to be Florida. I think what Todd Golden has done with that team is remarkable this year, and they're not big high priced guys. They were two-star transfers from different places and things like that, and some guys that they grew into the system. I think he's doing good stuff, and they are the team out of the toughest conference. Say what you will about the SEC bias and all that. It was the best conference this year, top to bottom. And they beat the stew out of each other. They've been the most tested along the way. They've had their bumps. They fought through them. They're hot at the right time. And I think for them, that's what's going to carry them through. So I'm hanging it on the Gators. I think they're going to wind up winning it. So which means we're going to get something like Creighton and Wichita State in the Final Four, something like that. Now, so we'll be completely wrong about this when it comes around.
That would be great. Like
That would be
bring back
awesome.
Bring back Florida Gulf Coast. Let's have Dunk City come back.
Oh yeah, that was fun. Weren't they fun? Yeah, those guys and that your Butler went on the run and all that stuff.
Butler
So
had 2 great years,
yeah, they did. They
but
well,
they
they were
were
in
just
finals once. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So no, I've seen a lot of those fun things. This is just a fun thing to watch again. It's you know something I grew up watching usually with my dad some too, and it's always a lot of fun to do. And you know it'll be a blast. And hey, I'm excited that the Final Four is in San Antonio. I don't know if you were spending any time in that town. That's a great basketball town and a lot of fun. So I'm glad it's landing somewhere there.
I've never been to San Antonio. I've been to Houston a couple of
Hmm.
times for various work things, but like you know, all I know about San Antonio is Charles Barkley's vendetta against those big old women.
Yeah, he can keep that vendetta, I guess. But no, San Antonio is a fun place, and it'll be a great host for the tournament and all these host cities. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun for places to get to host a tournament. It's gonna be a blast. So, we're gonna wrap it up here with this special edition of the Sports Ball Grinder. On, tell folks how they can follow you, all the cool stuff that you got going on out there.
Yeah, you can hear me and Jay talk more about movies and stuff on the Film Strip podcast, available wherever fine pods are casted. And you can read my occasional works on dennegeek.com. It's been a while since I've had anything good come up there, but um, all of the shows that I usually talk about are coming back. So expect to see me have more things to promote here shortly.
Always a lot of fun. We'll link Ron's socials in the show description as well. Shout out to our film strip co-host Lindsay as well, who couldn't make it in tonight, but we'll catch her again at another time. Always a good time talking it with you guys. So thanks for listening to this show, folks. You can find this show wherever you find podcasts. Again, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, iHeartRadio, we're all the places. Follow the show on Facebook at Sports Ball Grinder on Facebook. Just search for that. That'll get you all the show announcements and stuff that's coming up. So until next time, thanks for listening to the Sports Ball Grinder.